record. Okay, there we go. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic podcast. I have two fascinating guests with me today. I have with me Terrance B. Has the podcast Mr. B and Friends, where he has a lot of people that you might know, like Jim Goodall, and my guest today, Robert Bauer, and Heidi Pop, and he has a whole bunch of people on his show all the time, and it's called Mr. B and Friends. And I also have with me Robert Bauer. He's with the Nexcast podcast, and today we're going to be talking about their experiences, disclosure, the UFO industry. We're going to get into a lot, and I guess we're going to start off with Terrance and his images that he brought here. And yeah, guys, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. How are you?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, doing extremely well. Very, very honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess we could start off here. I'd love to hear about how you guys got into this. And Terrance, I know you said you're an experiencer. I'd love to hear if you want to go first, then Robert can go next. And
okay. It all started with me at the age of 7. I was heading home with my mother from a CYO. That's a Catholic youth organization. I was 7 years of age. My mother used to run the little tuck shop, snacks and drinks for all the children there. And it was on a Friday night, that I do know. And my mother used to finish at the youth club, will finish at 9 p.m. And on the way home, she looked up in the sky and she said, "Oh my God, am I seeing 2 moons?" And she took off her glasses, and I looked up and I said, "Yeah, I see 2 moons too." Then my brothers ran up behind us, and I said, "Hey guys, there's 2 moons up there." And they looked up, there was nothing there. And Mum says, "Oh, come on, let's go home." It must have been our imagination. But I was only 7. And so we got home. As soon as we got in, my father got very upset. And because we were over nearly 35 minutes late, normally we're home by 9:15. And it was about 10 to 10. And he was really worried. He said, "Where you guys been?" My mum says, "Oh, we must have just got sidetracked." Now I can actually say we had missing time, all of us. Anyway, Mum says, "Okay, get to bed." Apparently, first of all, on the radio, it turned around and said, "UFO seen over Sydney." Mum says, "Oh, it must have been a UFO we saw." We didn't have TV in those days. It was a radio, very a valve job, very rich sound, And Mum says, "Okay, now go on, get to bed, brush your teeth, wash your face, get to bed." Okay, so off I went. Later on that night, in the early hours in the morning, I can't really say what time it was. I know it's the early hours. I woke up. I heard like a strange noise. So I woke up and I shared a bedroom with my eldest brother, and his bed was to the right of me, and the wall I was on, the doorway was on that wall my bed was up against, and I saw this little being. Was a glowing being. There was no eyes, no nose, no mouth, but he would have been about my height, about 4.5 feet. I mean, I was like 7 years old, and he walked into the room. I know he walked in because when he walked between the beds, he stood over my brother, or it stood over my brother, and looked down at him. And then when he turned around and walked towards me, I screamed. I mean, as a young kid, frightened, I said, "It's a ghost," and that's what I honestly thought. And within moments, my mother and father were in the room. My dad was in there first, and "What's going on?" And I says, "There's a ghost." And my mother says, "Oh, must have been imagination. You saw the white shirt hanging up behind the door," which the door was open. And my dad said, "Come on, son, don't let your imagination go. Well, blah, 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 go back to sleep." So, okay. Now, strange thing about this, I've seen this being on the average twice a year till I was age of 13. Twice a year this happened, and each time I put my head under the sheet, it's going to go away, and each time it went away. There was a few times they actually came about 3 times in a year, but I didn't really concentrate. I know it's at least a minimum of twice that I can remember, put it that way. And at the age of 13, I woke up in a sitting up position, and this being was standing over me. And in his hand, he had something about, it's like a pencil-shaped thing about that long. I'd say about a couple of inches, and I looked down at my leg, and there was a gaping wound on my leg. And he put his hand to where the mouth would be. and long fingers, and he went like that, and I fell back to sleep. When I woke up, first thing I was doing, instinct, I looked at my leg. Nothing there, not even a scar, nothing. Okay, my imagination going on. Now, let's go back years ahead, later. There's me pup getting in on show. Anyway, years later, I would say about 3 years ago, I was in the shower and I was foliating myself and with a glove, and I noticed there was a scar on my leg, because as you get older, your skin tone and skin changes. And I called my wife and I said, Mary, can you come and have a look at this? And she came in and she said, yeah, oh, you've got a scar. And it's a very faint scar. You can just see it. And I said, wow. And then, okay, it all fell into place. It's just, okay, I wasn't imagining, it was true. But that was the last time I actually had the visitation. The second time, my experience, my abduction was, I was at the age of 24. It was on the 24th of June, 1974. And I went to bed about 10 o'clock, 10:30. Had to get up for work the following morning. And just got back from a jog, had a shower, and off I went to bed. And when you go to sleep, you have that, your foot would kick, and you like a trip, and you wake yourself up. Well, I didn't wake up. I ascended. I went upwards. I was just bathed in that, like a fog light, and every hair in my body was standing up. And it was like I was standing over a Tesla coil. Literally, everything was standing up on me. It was so static, kind of. And I couldn't move. I had like a paralysis through it all. But I don't remember entering onto a craft, but all I remember is going up in this light, and I was being led down this very long hallway, which was in a large oval-shaped, dome-shaped room. And around with my eyes, and I can actually see to me left and right with my eyes. I couldn't move my body, and I wasn't walking. It's like I was gliding down, being escorted with somebody on either side of me. And I came to this table, and there's this man, literally a cliche. He was in a white suit with a Chinese collar, believe it or not. I mean, I giggle to myself when I see this type of images online. And he was like a Nordic, beautiful blonde hair, beautiful blue eyes, really aquatic blue eyes, and a real chiseled chin. And what I did notice, the table was like an orange or a golden type marble, and around the edge it was like a grapevine going up and down, going around and there's hieroglyphs on the ups and lows of this grapevine. And this gentleman said to me without talking, hello, can you mention my name, Terrance? He says, can you tell me what you have done with your life? And I did not answer. It was quite I was feeling quite good, actually. I wasn't scared. I was feeling very pleasant, and I didn't feel judged or anything. And I just said nothing. I said nothing. And he asked me the second time. And again, I still did not answer. And he says, let me show you. And all of a sudden, within a split, and I'll say it's in a split second, it's like my whole life went before my eyes. It's like I saw everything, but it wasn't a memory. It felt like it was being tugged out of my head. It's like somebody was pulling on an elastic band from my brain, And it was a weird feeling. But again, I didn't feel panic. And I could see myself playing cricket in the street with the neighbours' kids, And then there was a lot more shown, but I can't remember that. And then he turned around, and I'm in front of him again. He says, now, can you tell me what you have done with your life? Again, I still did not answer. And he says, one day you're going to come across a crossroad, and you have to make a decision which path you take. And if you take the right path, it's all going to be revealed to you, and the answers will come. And I kind of, again, looked down at it like that. Yeah, okay. I didn't feel scared or anything. Then he turned around and said, a profound thing like said, now this is the closest you're ever going to get to death. Now let me cut the story, the experience off here briefly. For years, I honestly believed I had a near-death experience. I honestly believed I did. I've read books on it, and none of it resonated. None of it. Anyway, I get back to the experience. And he turned around and he said, look, you will know. And then when I woke up, like a punch in the chest, I was profusely sweating. Oh, no, my body was freezing cold. And my partner next to me at the time started freaking out. She says, I was awake and I couldn't move, and you were floating 2 feet above the bed, and I couldn't move. And she started saying, you are possessed. You are possessed. Now, I can honestly say my partner at the time was pregnant with my child. She took off like a greyhound. If she ever saw me in the street, she'll turn around and walk the other way. She was literally scared. She was scared. She couldn't understand. She honestly believed I was possessed. Anyway, I did not go to work that day. There I was in a Safeway store, pushing the trolley around, full trolley load, all upset about what happened with my partner and everything else at the time. And I was under this fluorescent light, and it started flickering, and I got into a panic attack. Never had one before in my whole life, a panic attack. And I ran home. I only lived across the road above I had a studio apartment above a shop. I ran home, left the groceries, just left the store. And there was I laying just about naked on the tile floor in the bathroom because I was sweating. Anyway, I felt like I was dying. My heart was pumping out of my chest. Anyway, I took myself to the doctors that day, and he says, "Oh, it sounds like you're having an anxiety attack." He says, "Anything dramatic happened to you lately, or anything?" And I told him my story, and his attitude changed just like that. He said, "Get out of my office now. Get out." He said, "This is the second time I've heard the same story today. Blah blah. If you want drugs, you go to somebody else and get it. I'm not giving it to you. If you don't go now, I'll get security to come and escort you out." So what the bloody hell? What's this coming from? I'm saying. So I went to a different doctor, and that next doctor asked me the same question. Did anything dramatic happen to you? I said, no. I wasn't going to go through that again. And he put me on Valium, and I was on Valium for about 4 months until I left Great Britain. I am an Australian-born man. I spent nearly 10 years there in the UK. And that's where I was, in a place called Cleveland in northern England. And anyway, I came back to Australia. I read a lot of books and everything else. And after about 2005, 2006, the internet's really started taking off. The old died up. We didn't have MSN Messenger and YouTube and everything at that time, but we did have a bulletin board where you could go to. And do you remember those, Robert? The old bulletin boards?
I had a one of those continuous form stacks about 2 inches thick with numbers all over the world,
Right.
including the Champaign-Urbana Computer Center.
Yeah. Anyway, I started reading stuff about, Nordic aliens, and I thought, hello. He described them in a white suit and described the color of their hair and their eyes. And whoa, okay. And it's like it started resonating with me but what happened to me then back in 1974, it only still today feels like it only happened about an hour ago. That's how fresh it is in my mind. It just will not leave me. It's like I'm haunted with it, totally haunted with it. And yes, I've come to realize I came to that crossroad, and I came to realization. Now I see the truth. And that's when I retired, I started up a podcast. It's called Mr. B's Truthseekers. But I usually start the show with Mr. B and friends. Yes, and that's, but I've always, since then, my old attitude, it literally changed my personality. I've become more of a intuitive empath with things. Like I look at a telephone sometimes, matter of seconds before it rings, and what spooks me sometimes, I know who's on the other end before I answer it. And I knew 24 hours before my mother passed away. I knew 3 weeks before my father passed away. And I was there for them on every occasion and on both occasions at the time. So, yes, it was very profound. It made me very sensitive about a lot of things. It's deep inside. I haven't talked about it for years. Even my wife, I love her. I love her heart. She's a very strong Christian Catholic, and she asked me why am I into it. And when I told her, she found it very hard to believe. She said to me, "I would tell the Marines, well, how come it's taking you all these years?" Because I knew how she would react if I told her. But yet she's very supportive towards me, which is what I do. Now, I always get the feeling to look up and I see UFOs. And it's like they're kind of whispering in my ear. And it's like saying, look up. And I don't hear any voices, not kids. I just get the feeling to look up. And when I look up, I always see a UFO. I've seen many times, like some look like satellites, but satellites don't come across the sky and then take off like into a totally different direction at lightning speed. But what's on the screen here now was my last sighting. It's also registered with MUFON. The UFO I actually saw was I was actually driving to work in the early hours of the morning, and within my peripheral, on my left side peripheral vision, I noticed a shooting star, but it actually came to a sudden stop. Boom, like on a dot, it just stopped. I'm like, whoa. But nothing I could do because I was driving the car, my phone was in my pocket, and I parked my car in the car park. And as I was walking towards the door of my employer's residence there, I looked up and I could actually see a star moving in the sky, and I could see a large craft. Now, if I may, Rob, I'll play the video. I'll give you. I want you to look at this video.
I'll put it up on the screen. Let me add that.
Yeah. Now you'll actually see it moving towards the telegraph pole, the small one. Up above that is the large craft. Now it's getting closer and closer and closer to that pole. Now, if you look along that building, along the roof edge, you'll only see one light. Well, I think near the UFO, right? It's beneath the UFO now. One light. Now, you'll actually see it now. As it gets close to the building, that's when I stopped. Then I took the photograph of the UFOs. Can you put it back to the UFOs?
I see it right here. I see where my mouse is pointing. Right here, right? Is that it?
Right.
You see where my mouse is pointing?
Wait.
Yeah, I don't see your mouse.
Right here. Oh, shit. I'm trying to think. I see it. It's right beside the building. If you look up to the building and then left,
like corner.
Yeah, there's two of them there.
Yeah. It's a lot. No, but one below the little one is actually a light on a pole.
Okay.
Right. And then there's a bright light to the right. And then the next dot in the sky is the UFO. And the one beneath that is a light that's not working. Now, the video actually shows that little one moving to that point. And then when I got there, I decided to take a photograph. Now, the photograph is on the other ones, which I actually gave you there, Rob. Can you bring up the UFOs again?
Yeah.
Have you got it there? Right.
Sorry,
now,
my computer is moving slow.
It's right. Now you can actually the bottom left. You got a rectangle shaped craft with 3 dots underneath. Right. 3 what I call 3 black plates. That's the one that's closest to the building blowing up. Right.
That's the one I saw. Yeah. That's the one I saw. I could see in the video.
Yep. Now, the other one, the mothership, I would call it, is the large one above that on the left. And the uncanny thing about this one is it's also got 3 dots on it, but you can't see the third one very clearly. Just like this small craft, it's also got the 3 dots. Now next to that, we've actually got a capping stone. I think it's the sun god Ra, if I'm correct. Is that Robert? What did you say that, Robert?
No, that's a capstone for the pyramid. Yeah,
that's correct. But the sun god Ra. Am I correct?
I think that one might be Rob.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that the capstone for the pyramid, like the pyramid of Giza? Is that?
Oh, I'm not sure.
No, that. As far as I know, that's never been found. This was, you see a lot of the obelisks in Egypt, and this was most likely on top of one of those, I think, in my opinion, than actually on a pyramid, because there really aren't any other pyramids like the ones on the Giza Plateau anywhere else in Egypt. The rest of them are step, and they didn't come to a point. But that, my opinion, this is the top of a big obelisk, most likely, and that that looks like it's interesting when you look at these things and you see the Sumerian language. We're looking at what we think is the Egyptian, and it most likely is. But I think the whole idea of what we think the actual languages in history are and is quite a bit different. So that is the winged disc symbol that you see up there. And that's all over the place in the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Babylonians, all of the Mesopotamian cultures use the same symbology. In fact, it's even in Persian and the Hittites. But what was your point? Are you saying that kind of looks like that, B?
Well, what it is, there are 3 dots on the actual large craft, but you can only see the 2 of them. But anyway, the symbol on the actual capping stone is, you can actually notice it's feathers. It represents flight. Henceforth, so is the craft that I took a photograph of. And in the middle of it, you've got the round, large dome, which is also in the middle of the photograph of the craft. And underneath, you'll actually see where it's got the eyes. You'll actually see 3 dots, which I'd say represents the 3 dots on the craft, and also represents the 3 dots that's on this small, I call it shuttle, let's say. Now, getting back to the small craft, after I took the photograph, it actually started glowing, and it glowed something like about 10 times brighter than what it should have done. And then it split up into 3 parts. One went north, one went south, and one shot off east, straight over my head. And when it shot over, the young girl that was opening up the place of work, she said, "What was that?" And I said, "You wouldn't believe it if I told it." And she said, "What was it?" And I said, "It's a UFO." And I said, "And you'll see the rest of it over there." And she went, "Oh my God." And she saw it. Anyway, 2 days later, her mother came in. She was an officer at Garden Island. And she says, my daughter told me what she saw. I advised her, and I'm advising you, better not talking about it. And why the thing is that baffles me, that craft was hovering over Naval Base Stirling of Rockingham. It was over the naval base, well, I'm not trying to put 2 and 2 together, but yeah, something was happening there.
Well, a lot of that happened here in the States during the Cold War up in Montana and North Dakota, South Dakota, where we've got all those silos. There's that one famous, it's documented that they saw something over the launch facility, and it took out 8 or more different individual. Right? Yeah, Maelstrom, yes. Took out, almost a dozen, I think, of the silos and the missiles. They just went offline. There was no way to turn them on or off. They just went offline. And so what do you think is the source of this kind of phenomenon? Whether it's like you're seeing be with the UFOs that you see and the encounters that they sound, what would typically be considered, spiritual, or in the spiritual realm, right? Or the ethereal, or, esoteric, mystical realms. And all of this seems to be, to me at least, have a lot of common characteristics in that the way that they appear, the things that happen, the things that we feel and we experience when we're experiencing them, because we're going through these experiences going big WTF is happening here? And a lot of this ends up into that ongoing story we all write, and another chapter, an episode in I Didn't See That Coming, because our lives are full of that, more so probably now than ever. But what do you think is the source of what this is?
Well, again, I can only speculate because at the end of the day, it was very real to me. The fact, I still find it hard to believe that my partner at the time said that I was actually floating. I accept the fact that she said she was awake and couldn't move, because now I do know there is such a thing called sleeping paralysis, right? A paralysis situation. It could be, I mean, I'll speculate. Can they steal your conscious in a telepathy type way, where they can actually energize you and then absorb your essence, as they say, and take you and communicate that way? I mean, I really don't know, but I know it's real, and I know that I was taken in some form or another. That I have no doubt about. Listen, I've had thousands of dreams in my life, and they don't stay with you like this one has, so vividly clear.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find very hard to accept too, that as much as that abduction was really euphoric, really nice, why did I suffer anxiety and everything afterwards? What did I go through? What did they do to me? Now, I've actually got a questionnaire of Mary Rodwell, which I'm supposed to have a regression hypnosis with her eventually when I fill out the questionnaire she sent me. But I'm hesitant. I'm 73 now. And I know what I went through years ago, anxiety and the stress of it all. Do I need it at 73? I know, but
Yeah,
I get it. I have a lot of people saying, you should, and then maybe I should. Then maybe everything will be answered, if that makes sense.
Well, I think honestly, Terrance, I think Mary's one of the best at what she does. Honestly, I like Mary a lot. I mean, she's more on the side of the positive alien. She believes they're here for a more positive purpose. I know there's some people. I mean, I think she believes in the negative ones though too. Because I'm just thinking, is she, like I think she's really good. She's one of the best at what she does. So, but what I was going to say with that said is I think like it would open up a lot for you, but do you want to deal with the trauma? That's like you said, I guess that's the exchange.
Yeah, well, the thing is, right? I think I should go eventually. I mean, I will do it, but I'm just getting the Dutch courage to do it. But yes, I think the main question I ask is, why me? Why? Why did that happen to me? Why? What's the purpose of it all? It's like, what's the meaning of life? Why? Anyway, that's my story, and thank you for listening to that. What about you, Robert? What's your story, man?
Well, my experiences have been more in the in that spiritual realm and in the ethereal, the mystical space. I've had very few. I think there's like 3 different times I saw something that was very much an anomalous phenomenon that shouldn't have been there and it shouldn't have happened. And one of the most profound ones was, like many, I had a paper route in my teens going to school. And I used to throw papers to the various businesses at the mall. And at the mall then was just all the stores were in the building. There wasn't any inside, just a huge parking lot. So I was going down that parking lot about 6 a.m. and I looked up, and the only thing I could imagine that it was it looked like one of our large carrier military aircraft. And it was maybe 100 feet above the building. I mean, it was right there. It was moving very slowly. There was fog and clouds, so refraction or some other kind of light event may have been happening, but it looked like two different things. The building was one thing, and this thing, and it didn't make a sound. So I saw that, and I saw light, but I rarely, and I've seen various, as I said, anomalous phenomena, but most of mine has been in the internal exploratory space. I have been I'm a traveler, explorer, independent thinker, and a seeker. And my curiosity is like never satiated. So I'm always looking at stuff. And the more that I look at stuff, the more I try to see what are I try to take a first principles approach to whatever it is that I'm looking at or examining or trying to understand. And that first principle is, what is the nut of the nugget? What is it that's going on? Sans all the other stuff that has been wrapped around it by who knows who for whatever reasons. Because there's an overabundance of that right now, and in particular, where I can add something to this topic of, not only the UFOs and space aliens, what I refer to as our cosmic cousins. I think that, yeah, they're out there. Yes, most likely we are engineered by another race. That explains a whole bunch of things, like all of the other primates that have any of the kind of humanoid construct that we have, like apes and monkeys and so forth. All of the primates have 24 chromosomes. We only have 23. The second chromosome has been removed. It's not there. How did that happen? Today, we have this technology called CRISPR, which can remove genes within the chromosomes, but we can't add anything to them. The whole idea of being able to add genes into the chromosome, we can't do that for whatever reason. We can modify them, we can change them chemically, but we can't add, we can only subtract. So why is it that we only have 23 and the rest of the meat sacks that run around here in the same format have 24? Something happened. There's written explanations of it, but the established orthodox academic model is not for that. That goes against what they have established as the framework of history and knowledge and all of these things. So, but the data is out there. What B just shared with us is not uncommon, and they come in all kinds of different forms. That's why I asked the question, what do you think the source is? I would say that the psychedelic hallucinogenic experience is very much, especially in the ayahuasca, DMT, psilocybin experiences, is very much like the experiences that B and others have like that. I mean, you can almost, and I wrote this down while B was talking about it, because it seems like it came to me as a temporal hallucinogenic experience. And hallucinogenic, not in the sense of drug altered it's a hallucination. Whether it's real or not, it is real during the hallucination. And that's what people, shamans and all the different, the Oracle of Delphi, all the different stories that we heard of the clairvoyants, the seers, the prophets, the court astrologers and court wisemen and advisors, and all these people. In fact, what's really fascinating, I have a extremely good friend, Jeff Harmon, who's an astrologer, and he was the astrologer for George Carlin. He's been at it for 40 years, and he does the charts and interrogations on charts for people all over the world. And he and I started doing a series of podcasts about what makes astrology not only appear to be something that's very intriguing, you want to go check it out, And in addition, it's got millennia of data. It's the one system of knowledge, metrics in the matrix, which is my tagline for my philosophy of reality, which I call informatica. So informatica is the concept that everything is consciousness. Consciousness is where everything comes from. And you can't mathematically or mentally, in our perspective and the limited sensory and capabilities we have, come up with anything that describes what consciousness is, because they haven't. It's known as the hard problem in all disciplines, because once the observer effect, Schrodinger's wave theory, once that's introduced into any experiment, it changes the experiment. How is that? There's no explanation for that. To me, that's a nature and habit of consciousness. So consciousness is where everything is, and everything is because of consciousness. The Hermetic principles speak of this. Socrates, even Pythagoras. When you look at reality as what happens in your consciousness, and you have the experiential component of that journey, all the different things that happen, that is the only thing that that is real, is your own empirical experience. Anything else anybody tells you is theirs, and you can't have that same knowledge or experience with that, because it's not you. So the individuality of who we are is made from consciousness. Consciousness has nature and habits and characteristics. One of the things that is clear is it's always in motion. There's always movement. And it seems to be what we would consider at least forward or future, because it's not now, it's next. And next is the important thing, because we're always in the next. But go back to consciousness, characteristics, it's in motion. That motion seems to create things, something new, novelty.
Do you believe that, say, your beta waves and alpha waves and everything at rest actually open up gateways to,
you
different realities?
You can say that, because here's the key part of this, what comes out of consciousness. The motion of creation and the achievement or manifestation of novelty is expressed with this thing we call energy. Energy is the expression of consciousness, and energy is expressed in a vast, unbelievable, infinite field of frequencies. Those frequencies are the things that then manifest the reality, the physical, the materium that we inhabit and experience. It's literally that simple. The key thing is that because consciousness manifests motion through the characteristic of energy, and it's all frequencies, we are individual, unique frequency stamps and signatures of those frequency fields that come from consciousness. Ergo, we are experiencing consciousness, but in a specialized, unique frequency stamp of the energy that consciousness expresses. So that's how once that happens, and creation is always in motion, the whole thing in physics about the law of conservation of energy and matter can't be created and it can't be destroyed. No, it's in constant creation. That's why we're seeing an expanding everything. Everything is expanding. The Hubble just doubled the age a few weeks ago. Clearly, the math that was used to come up with that number needs to be reevaluated.
Yeah. The Big Bang doesn't belong to us anymore,
right? Because the empirical data that we just got shows as well that's wrong. Need to go revisit that. The problem is, and I'll try to see if we can bring this into this whole disclosure UFO thing. So that concept of reality, informatica that I just explained, with consciousness, energy, the materium, and we are an expression, a unique stamp. That's what makes us unique and who we are. And that's why we never die. this physical body transitions, but our energy just goes on to some other, and there's a whole bunch of interesting delineations and definitions about the space between manifestations, because there does seem to be a lot of evidence and common sense to the whole idea of what people typically refer to as reincarnation. I refer to it as iterations. Once that stamp is made, we're flowing along with the creation of the energy of creation, and we are moving in a constant flow within this infinite field of frequencies that manifest everything that we experience, including ourselves. So there are cycles within cycles. There's all kinds of harmonics and harmony and disharmony. But that's a natural part of the way that it works. It just works that way. So from that stack, as we manifest, then all the ways in which we described our manifestation and the experience that we have of it is what we've defined as philosophies and theologies and sciences and belief systems. And each one of them are their own way of either an individual or a group of folks or some kind of consensus of what reality is. Why are we here? Where do we come from? Where we be going? So the where we be going is a lot of it is one of the issues in the whole ufology community, because everybody's got, I think there's a pent up demand or frustration that is, people are looking at it going, there's so much data, just come out and tell us, please get it over with. Hiding it is making you look not only stupid, but nefarious. And we got suspicions. And let's bring out a stack of conspiracy theories and let's go through them, shall we?
Yeah. And I got a question to ask you though, Robert. I was wondering what you think about the psychedelic state and the dream state, because I believe it's all consciousness too. And I've had some psychedelic experiences. I've experimented with DMT and mushrooms and for expansion of consciousness. And then I feel like I've had parallel realities and dreams. So do you think these are just like different forms of like the consciousness we're experiencing? Do you think they are parallel realities, the psychedelic experience and the dream experience? Do you think they're just other realities that we can manifest with either, you know, and some yogis and people can do it like naturally, you know, it seems like. Well,
the key is the word and the definition of, you know, dimensions or realities. Okay. The definitions and the use of those words to describe these things, I think have not necessarily been hijacked, but they're more limiting to the actual experience of what's really going on. If you go back to what I was saying about consciousness, its energy comes from consciousness. It is consciousness. And within that energy is expressed in an infinite field of frequencies. Okay. So within those infinite fields, there's all kinds of different delineations of the way that things manifest and the way they express. So when I think of dimensions, I think of it as just another address in the frequency field. And I think that's how you had Courtney Brown on a week or so ago. And I've been following Courtney since he put out his first book back in the mid 90s. And I'm an avid amateur scientist and student of non-local consciousness. Consciousness is where it's at. And I think that as I was saying, once our unique frequency stamps manifest into this physical reality, and that reality has all of its characteristics, and we all share a common reality, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing this.
As I would say, Robert, I've always said this: we live in a three-dimensional world, but there are over 7 billion realities. What happens to you does not happen to me. You can kick your toe. I didn't feel it. I mean, so we all live in our different realities, but yet, as Robert would say, we have a common link, and you can call it whatever, life itself in a three-dimensional world.
You could call it, you know, it's a shared. I was going to say shared safe place or space, but it's not really that safe anymore. But we are in a shared reality, so that we have the ability to interact,
bouncing off each other constantly,
right?
Bouncing, yep.
But in the end, going back to your question, Rob, I think that it's not different dimensions, it's different places within within the infinite construct where everything manifests. So it's not something that is let me put it this way. That frequency stamp, that's an energy stamp and a set of energy frequencies. And in fact, we, with the tools, techniques, toys, and telemetry that we have today, we can measure everybody's individual frequency. Everybody's got their own frequency right now. And it is a cacophony of all the different cycles and circuits of all these different frequencies that one makes up our brain, one makes up our mouth, one makes up our legs. They're all different frequencies. And I think what helped me is I was trying to explore, because every time I go into a particular subject domain, knowledge domain and the subject matter, I want to understand as much of it, of what's available about it as possible, because in my exploration of the current silos that house whatever it is, metrology or religion, philosophy, biology, neurology, doesn't matter. They all have a very siloed set of data that they use to define the world in which they inhabit and how they view it. The neurological folks typically don't have a lot of interface with the biological folks. In fact, they're so siloed, and they have their own view of the world that they do battle with one another on a regular basis. But each one has a data set that they're working from. So trying to answer your question, I got a little sidetracked there.
No, this is brilliant. I love it. Thank you. This is really good stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's just one guy's rambling of the experiences that I've encountered so far and the collective analysis I've done on those. I went through the whole Christian Abrahamic Western religion thing. Started as a Baptist. I even had my own Christian ministry back in 80 and 81. And I was in a Pentecostal church, and we had a band, and we performed at youth authorities, rest homes, prisons, all that stuff, beating people over the head with that book, telling them, now, if you don't do this proper, like, you're not going to end up there with the big guy. Right. And it was, I was in it. We spoke in tongues. We laid hands on the sick. We cast out devils. We did weekend, nonstop marathon prayer sessions. We were immersed, and I dove in, and I wanted to see what was going on in there. So I got into prophecy, and fascinated me. And so I had my own Bible study 3 or 4 times a week. What is this Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Hosea, and Revelations, and Daniel, and all this? What's going on in here? Nostradamus, what's that all about? What's this prophetic dream thing? Or what are these events where these visions manifest, and then somebody, the recipient thereof, writes them down, and then later on people go, whoa, how did that happen? Where do you get that information a few hundred years ago? What is that? To me, in this model of consciousness that I inhabit and am really enjoying exploring, is it's like a trend analysis for the future. When you look at where things are and what characteristics and energy they have, you kind of get a feel for where they're going. This is why we have, economists and statisticians and all these people that do analytics on data, and they go, well, it's kind of going this way with the data sets that we have. Here's the trend analysis. And the biggest, the famous and most libelous one is this whole climate change modeling that they've done, which is it's complete crap. And being able to audit it, which is the most important thing that anybody can do with the data they've gathered. There's got to be enough transparency and the ability to audit the information. Go back and check on it. Because what I found in my exploration of the religious side, the philosophy side, the science, and now into the conscious realm, is that at least 50% of the data that I encounter in any chosen domain is questionable. It's an average 50%, some more, some less. The other 50% is either completely wrong or missing. And I think what we're about to see, I think what's actually happening is what I call the knowledge apocalypse, the unveiling of the curated narrative. Apocalypse meaning what the original meaning was, which is to unveil or to reveal. And we're watching all of the institutional silos of knowledge, authority, architecture, infrastructure, systems, models, all of it is broken. And I used to think when I made that statement that I needed to put in general, I'm leaning more towards all of it. There ain't nothing left that ain't broken. It's a mess out there. And it's a mess for a cadre and cacophony of reasons. But the whole idea of disclosure, see if I can bring it back to that in some way. I think that, first of all, again, because I take this first principles approach and I like to look at things from what their essence are. What is the real nut of the nugget? So I always, linguistically, it's really important because in Informatica, one of the precepts is that language is the operating system of the mind. In other words, the words you use, the definitions you've ascribed to them, define how you're going to operate when words and language are in use. And the most important place that words and language are in use is in our mind. It's in our thoughts. It's in what we think. But most importantly, it's more about how we think. We don't, there's the system of thought and the process of how we cognitate, how we have mentation in this biological meat suit that we uber in this iteration. It is the sensory capabilities of that system is what our consciousness uses as its main data input. But the data that's available, that's in the domains, when you go look at it and you go, well, you know, why aren't you looking at this? How is this not being considered? Or we've looked at that and that's completely wrong. Why are you still holding on to that? You know, we're seeing this in the, you know, the Ivy Leagues and the higher institution systems. I mean, they're cranking out, and not to get on a rant, but when these people started coming out with this whole thing about, well, we've got to, you know, forgive these student loans and stuff. And I went, excuse me, hold on a second. There's a couple things that this is an example of making sure that you understand, or you getting to the nut of the nugget. They say, well, first of all, these loans are a burden. Well, why are they a burden? Because the people can't pay them back. Why can't they pay them back? Because they can't make any money to pay it back. Really? Well, didn't they invest in this, what they've got the loan for, so that they can make a living to pay it back? Well, most of them did, but a lot of them just wanted to have the paper. So you're telling me that the return on investment, the whatever it cost you to get that loan, that you can now not pay back because it doesn't provide, or you haven't taken advantage of it. There's a lot of that. And you want other people to forgive that? No, you got to put on the big girl pants and big boy panties, and you got to go, look, this stuff is a part of how society functions. But let's take it another step further. Let's examine why why the loan, the content, whatever the asset was that the loan was secured by, how did it perform? Was it actually worth the amount that it was charged for? And what is its track record? How many people that have gotten this degree have used it effectively? Shouldn't that be one of the key questions that you ask before signing up for the debt to secure that asset? I mean, that's just logic. It's just, you know, basic. When I was in school, we had a class called home economics. We learned how to cook and balance a checkbook. checkbook. What's that, you say? So there's been a lot of change that has degraded, I think, our ability, the experiences, so that people can have a much richer and more truer experience of reality, because there's just a bunch of crap out there. So the disclosure, well, if the disclosure is, are we alone or not, that happened tens of thousands of years ago. That shouldn't even be the main part of the discussion and use of the word disclosure. It's in every civilization, every mythos, every cosmology of every civilization that we found to date. Somebody up there came down here, dropped off this stuff. Some of them were doing some nefarious shit over here, but that's how we got here. Somebody else came here and did something to what was either here, or they brought it along and made change. There's all kinds of different possibilities, but there was direct intervention clearly in all of the what they call myth. And I always like to say, when this subject comes up, is look at history as myth and myth as history, and you'll find some fascinating things that the other way around wouldn't answer.
And what would you ask, Robert? What would you ask the Congress to do with disclosure today?
Oh, I'd just tell them to get the hell away from it, leave it alone. It's not their purview. They're too screwed up to handle it properly. It's going to be the fact that the government, and this is my opinion, the fact that the government controls the information, the classification of the information, that can be passed easily without anything that it's going to piss off anybody's ideology or particular party. It's just the revealing of information. It's what I was saying earlier. Transparency and accountability is the big problem in all of this. So the disclosure thing is like, okay, it's not about are we alone? It's really about what you have and what you've been holding on to.
Yeah. Well, my personal opinion is.
Oh, sorry, Terrance. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, Rob. Carry on.
I was just gonna say, I feel like they don't want to touch the crazy the stuff that's like the human mutilations, the alien abductions, the MyLab abductions, like, you know, that stuff all seems to be really going on. I don't think the government wants anything to do with that. Well, you know, I don't know. You know, maybe they just don't think that far into it. You know, sometimes I wonder if there's a brain in some of those people that are on the Congress. You know, like they don't know. I don't know. What do you think, Terrance?
Well, personally, I think they should be having what they call a wide spectrum of questions. Hit them with one question at a time. Was Roswell real? Let's get that out of the way. I mean, it's simple. You know, we don't want to know about the technology yet. We'll get down that road later on, because you're not going to tell us because it's all classified. But what harm is it going to do if what really happened at Roswell? And did it really happen in Italy in 1933? A large craft, which Mussolini and his mob had, which gave to the Nazis to create the Nazi bell and everything else. Right.
Well, I agree, B, but I think that once that's going to be the easy part. Just say, yeah, this stuff happened, and here's the docs that we've been hiding from everybody. And oh, by the way, here's the technology that we got from this. And oh, by the way, it's not only free energy and free water, but it's free communications with a device that'll fit in the palm of your hand.
Yeah,
because
you've got to start somewhere simple. You know,
well,
basically, you know?
I think you know, it would be easier on the populace, because you've got to remember, just like Neo in the Matrix, and Morpheus said to him, you know, when you go in there, just know that some people don't want to be unplugged, and they will fight to stay plugged. So they're not. You don't think that there's just going to be a common instant awakening of reality. There's a whole bunch that are just saying, nope, I'm staying right here. I am not going to go into this Star Trek future with these people that apparently have been screwing with us for a long time. but they've got cool toys, and if we can get the Jetson thing going, then yippee, that's okay. Let's go do it. But that to me is the real disclosure. Is the tech that they've had, and what a completely different world we would be in right now had they not hidden it for 70 or 80 or more years.
And that's the crazy thing about it, Robert. Back in the 50s and 60s, popular science magazines, comics, everybody talked about anti-gravity, flying cars. They were talking about it. And all of a sudden, roughly about 58 and everything, they start tightening up on this subject. But apparently, I believe the TRB-3 did its maiden voyage somewhere about 1958, between 1958 and 63. I'm not sure of the exact date, but supposed to have, you know.
Well, you've got the Hannibal over in Germany during that time. I mean, and the pictures, you look at some of the photographic evidence, and it's like, well, that looks like a beta TRB-3. I mean, it's got the domes, it's got the shape. So that to me, yeah, one of the questions I think is important is how much of it is our tech that we're actually seeing, and how much is it our cosmic cousins? I kind of lean towards the majority of it, at least 3/4 or more of what we see is from this tech that I'm talking about. It's from the tech that these guys have had and hidden for decades. And when people realize that the world could be completely different had they not been selfish and not let let the other kids play with their toys, then that's going to cause a boatload of frustration, discontent, chaos, confusion, all that good stuff. But it's going to lead to a much better world in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's throw another spanner in the works. Okay, here we got Luis Elizondo. I believe he's a very nice man. He's a career man. He was military. He was in charge of ATIP, and he came forth with in 2017 with the Tic Tac videos, and all of a sudden, he's an internet sensation. Boom! Remember, during that time, people like the New York Times and most media networks don't want to touch anything to do with UFOs. All of a sudden, the gateways were open for all this information to be given out. In other words, they were given the nod. Let's show this stuff to the general public. Now, all of a sudden, a couple of people come out of all this since then. Luis Elizondo and David Grush. Okay? They're all career men, and they're probably doing it. Personally, I looked at UFO Tic Tacs as the Trojan horse. It's a Trojan horse because if you want to destroy UFOology, you're not going to do it from the outside beating on it. You're going to do it from the inside out. Destroy it like a nucleus. Get into you and destroy it from the inside out. And people forget that Luis Elizondo is a counterintelligence agent, expert in his field, career man at the Pentagon. Is he just going to walk away from that job, his career? I'm not saying he's a bad person, right? I've heard a lot of reports saying he's a really wonderful person, but he's got a job to do. And I believe it's all order to steer the narrative into a different direction because true ufologists are getting too close to the truth. We now steering into a different. Now you're getting stonewalled by Congress. Now they come and say, "Oh, we can't." They start reading, "Oh, it's classified. It's classified." They're allowed to look at it. They're allowed to see what it's all about, but the general public are not allowed to. It's all classified. So, classified is guilt within it. Is saying it's true without saying it. I mean, that's how I look at it.
I think there's two things you said there. One, you were talking about the slow rollout, and the Trojan horse thing is, to me, that kind of model. But when you think about it, if they're trying to destroy the ufology or the UFOOls or whatever delineation you want to put on them, first of all, because there is another presence of another race that is here, There's no doubt of that. And they've kept that whole thing under wraps. It'll eventually come out. So they're not going to destroying the ufology and people that follow it is futile, because that their truth is going to be the one that will end up being the reality. All they can do is try to throw as much confusion in while they're trying to control the narrative and keep people sounding like, the nutcases and the conspiracy theorists. I used to be a big time conspiracy theorist until I became a conspiracy analyst, because then I had to start looking at the theories that I was going, hey, I think that's probably right. And I had to go in and do exactly what I was talking about. Try to find the nut of the nugget. What's the truth about this? And the more I looked into, again, the philosophies, theologies, the sciences, all the different belief systems, I keep finding a common thing. We all have consciousness, and we all experience it in our own way through the language that is the operating system of our minds. And when you realize that's what's going on a fundamental level, you then start going in and looking at the words and the sentences that the words are used to construct and the ideas are behind them. And you start going, whoa, what's going on here? Rob, you'd mentioned, the DMT and the hallucinogenic thing earlier. And is there any correlation to dreams? Is it, something akin to it? I think that however you want to define it, we'll just use hallucinogenic as a general term for the conversation. Whatever falls into that category for that word that you experience, whether it's in dream or it's assisted through some kind of chemical induction consumption, it's all the same. It's all happening in the same set of frequencies. It's all in the same frequency field. So whether you do astral travel, you leave your body, you have any kind of non-local consciousness, remote viewers, clairvoyance, even psychokinesis or telekinesis, the ability to take your energy and affect another energy or to influence it. That's a part of the way consciousness works. That's a part of the way that the frequency fields function, because you can choose to interact or not. Or if you have to, then you at least have some way in which you can navigate that experience. Because if you go through all this hierarchical theological model, which is, I think, the first ones that are going to suffer the most with the cosmic cousin space alien awareness, because they've got, in the Abrahamic religions, they all have a personality at the top. There's an entity, an individual, a character that has a personality that has established and guides and controls that system of belief. So the ones in the West, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, are all from the same Abraham. So they're the Abrahamic group, and they all have, descended from that original belief system. But boy, have they all taken their own individual turn at it, right? They're all saying, no, it really means this. No, it really means that. But the whole hierarchical belief structure of control is it's gated, and you have to, in certain energy and actions have to be put forth in order to go through from one gate to the next. And in some of them, there's severe punishment for not only not doing it right, but going against it and even ignoring it, for that matter. But then you look at the other belief systems, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Shinto, Taoism, which is what I follow. I became a Tai Chi instructor back in the mid 90s, and then just continued to study the Tao and the I Ching, and found that the simpleness of it is that you are in it and you must exist with it. And the first line of the Tao is that which can be called the Tao is not the Tao. It is it is beyond that. It is unintelligible. There's no words that can describe it, which is, interestingly enough, the same thing that's using all the monotheistic, personality-headed belief systems. You can't describe him, but we'll tell you that it's a dude. He's got long hair. He sits in a chair in the clouds. And this imagery is put forth in our minds through that language and the words within the language to create an idea, a concept. And then we take that as our frame and we go muck about in reality and navigate our way through with that frame. That if you can get as many frames that are calibrated and tuned to the direction that you want, to the emotion you want, to the frequency set that you want, and you get as many of that and going in the same direction, you control the herd.
100%. 100% with you there. Silence. It's thought provoking, that's for sure. And again, I'm lately it's really been geeing me up with all the BS that's going on in ufology at the moment. And I spoke to Rob about it earlier on, and honestly, it's an industry which is going crazy. I mean, how many podcasters like Rob and a lot of other people that's probably been in the industry for, podcasting for the last 15, 20 odd years, a lot of people, right? And they put on their good shows. They do their research, their homework, and they have provoking questions. But all of a sudden, you got two people all of a sudden become like gurus overnight, and everybody kind of look at them like the messiah of ufology, you know, and it's like, what the hell's happening? You know, these people, it's been paid for. The stage has been set for them. They're taking the stage. Now they're controlling it, and they're taking, as you say, they're taking the ufology herd into a totally different direction.
Well, they're trying to me, I think that they may be trying to steer it, but as I was saying, the argument against ufology and the basic premise and concept of it is it's a futile one, because the revelation of space aliens, cosmic cousins, when that comes around, it's okay, hands down, you win. But in the meantime, while they're trying to set whatever stages, for whatever events or steps that they think is necessary to go forward, Project Bluebeam, you know, Werner von Braun's famous statement that, you know, the last thing in the control stack is aliens. It's UFOs. So apparently they've run out of everything else. It is now upon everyone, because you don't have, I mean, today, the Uniblab, you know, these wonderful things that we all carry with us, you have access to the world, to anyone in the world with the Uniblab. So, and they all now have the capability to record visual, sound and video. So there is more and more. I've seen stuff that you look at and you go, well, there's no doubt that's clear. And people are getting more and more fine-tuned in the filters, in their bullshit filters, of what they're being told. And they're seeing stuff with their own eyes and hearing things and experiencing things for themselves, which goes back to the point that we made earlier. The only thing that anyone can know is true is what they know. And everything else is subjective, because it's somebody else's experience.
Do you believe aliens are living amongst us?
Oh, absolutely.
So do I. What about you, Rob?
I do. I don't know if it's the Annunaki or if it's like reptilians in Earth or what. You know, it's something's here. You know, I really truly believe that.
I'll share something with. I was in the Philippines, and I was at a place called the Mall of Asia. It's a huge place, huge. And I was up top there, and I was looking down at all these people walking below. They're like ants, everywhere. And I kind of mentally said to myself, hey, I'm up here. Just think of it. Would you believe about 4 or 5 people literally stared directly at me. And I didn't mention a word. I just thought it. Hey, I see you. I'm up here. And it just looked directly at me.
Non-local consciousness. I mean, there's the whole idea, and this is some of the fundamental things that I think is just fascinating. Then, and the more that people are at least aware of them, let alone thought about them, the more fascinating and exploratory their experience would be. And that is, how many times have you had the sense that somebody was looking at you and you turned around and there was somebody there looking at you? I mean, was it their eyesight that you felt? Was it their energy fields? Was there something? What was it that caused you to sense the awareness and focus of someone else on you? Science has no
toroidal field, right?
What's that?
They call that the toroidal field, right?
No, well, toroidal field is a motion of energy, but this is something else. This is, in fact, what's interesting is the whole process of sight is not explained by the current model. The current model is light, which is something else reflecting or refracting off of something else, enters this biological system of nerves and neurons and so forth that apparently take the image that we're seeing, turn it upside down, run it down a channel, turn it right back side up, and now you see it. So is sight, is what somebody's seeing, is it an image in their head, or is it an image that's out there in reality?
Well, it's like when
Science
you look at
doesn't
somebody.
explain that, and to me, the whole mechanistic model doesn't make any sense. It tells you what the biological electrical activity is, but it doesn't explain how somebody can stare at you and you feel them.
Yeah,
turn around and then they are.
exactly. You can walk towards somebody with a smile on your face and they'll smile back. If you had a frown on your face, you can guarantee they kind of avoid you and look down at the floor. They don't want to make eye contact with you.
Right.
It's the body language itself, and it's like reflecting off you. You know, it's a wave.
That's right. Everything is a wave. Every frequency is a wave in motion, and they all express themselves individually as well as collectively. It's what they call contrapuntal in music. You have individual lines that individually, like the bass line, the violin, the piano, and they all move independently but collectively together. And that's the way that I think this infinite field of frequency, or infinite frequency field, how it operates. It's a bunch of harmonious stuff that's constantly interacting, and it's doing things of its own individual as well as collective nature. And that's, to me, that explains a lot of the crap and the chaos that I know I'm seeing, because I'm watching some of these cycles and energies bouncing around each other. I'm thinking, why would somebody do that?
So what thoughts have you got on your mind there, Rob? Anything you want to ask or dive into?
Yeah, we covered a lot of stuff. We can go wherever you guys want. I wanted to ask Robert this, and you can comment as well, Terrance, whatever. But I wanted to get Robert's perspective on the Annunaki, because I know that was kind of like I used to be a huge Art Bell fan growing up. I listened to Art Bell like religiously, back when it was on the radio. But then I kind of got away from it, and then in 2016 I found out about the Annunaki, and that kind of like was like my reawakening into all this stuff. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't believe that it was being hidden from us. And so I wanted to get your opinion from someone who is deep in religion. What you were like when you found out about the Annunaki.
So I was exposed to Sitchin's work and the Anunnaki in the 12th planet back in the mid 80s. And it set my entire consciousness on fire. I went, what is going on here? And consumed just about all of his books. Started looking at other people. Michael Tellinger, I think, is doing some great work. different scholars who have read the Sumerian tablets is where this story comes from. So I'm not sure of the Sumerians. I think it's 20, maybe 25% of what's been found has been deciphered. There's a whole bunch there yet that is still to be unveiled. Same thing with a lot of the ancient cultures, the Rig Veda, the Mahabharata, the Indian texts, a lot of stuff in Indonesia. I mean, there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of all kinds of different writings that have yet to be deciphered and made available. The information that we have found just in the small percentage that we have deciphered is where Sitchin was able to get the story of the Anunnaki, Nibiru, Anu, Enlil, Enki, all of the different stories that went around who these people are. And in the Enuma Elish, which is typically called the 7 tablets of creation, that story was put into clay tablets 1,500 years before Moses supposedly even existed and wrote the Torah, the first five books of the Bible, the Christian Bible. And in that 7 tablets, there's not only in the beginning there was this and then that and we did this and blah blah blah, but it's told with about 3 or 4 more pages of detail each one. And that is that the Anunnaki came here looking for gold. They the troops that they brought with them got pissed for having to dig the mines. I think it was Enki who came and said, I can take this ape over here and I can do some mixing of genes and we can have the perfect working labor being that we need to relieve our folks of having to dig these mines. And there was apparently at least a dozen or more attempts before they finally got the one that we are now. A lot of experimentation, obviously transhumanism, if you will. So that story has, I think, more of the actual events in it than most of the rest of them. There's other versions and delineations and variations, but I think that in essence is probably true. So we were engineered. Was it the Anunnaki? Was it El and the Elohim? What were the actual names? That I'm not as concerned about that as I am. There was clearly a group of folks that had some kind of patriarchal hierarchy that came here with a specific job to help. Apparently the gold is to suspend in their atmosphere because it's got this incredibly long elliptical orbit and it powers itself, but the gold suspension, probably some kind of monatomic form.
For consciousness as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting how that, right? So I think that if the Anunnaki did that, then they seem to have left at some point, left a small contingent. That contingent's been here, and I think that a lot of it is probably on the moon. I think the moon is clearly there by intent for observation and monitoring and all that good stuff. The folks that stayed behind when the major groups left are probably up there, although I'm sure that they're all down. Some of them are down here too. They've been kind of letting, almost in a prime directive kind of way of letting us see where we go with gentle nudges and guidance, along the evolution of our species. Are they here now doing anything? I think some remnants probably are, or at least if they're not remnants, I think that maybe they've changed their plan a little bit. I don't know if they, if they came here to say, we need this stuff and we need help getting this stuff, and we're going to make tools, i.e. humans, to go get this stuff. Because our whole thing is dominion. We are the ones at the top. We rule stuff. We lord over things. So this creation we've created to do this, we got what we needed and they boogied.
Yep. Well, my opinion is, it's only my opinion, the Sumerian text states the creation, and apparently in Genesis chapter 127 and 126, I think it's 127 says, when God made man, he made him in his image. But Genesis 126 actually states, when the gods made man, they made him in their likeness and in our image.
Yeah.
What do they mean by that? Now, that's the original one came from the Sumerian text, Genesis 126. Was actually from the Sumerian text.
Well,
and the
yeah.
Judaism Christian put in Genesis 127, where God made man. So they altered around. But yet, on the same token, Bible actually says, not one word shall be moved, not one word shall be altered. What do? They shaped it to suit themselves.
Well, we can thank King James and the gang for putting all that shit in there. But did that answer your question, Rob? Did that make any sense?
Yeah. One thing I heard recently, I thought this was really interesting. I think you'll find this interesting. I was a huge fan of Gerald Clark. He died. Yeah. He wrote the books The Annunaki of Nibiru and Seven Planet Mercury Rising. He was amazing. I got to interview his wife, Krista, but I was like kind of late when I didn't get a chance to interview Gerald. But I was listening to a couple of Gerald's interviews on Coast to Coast AM, and Gerald thinks, this is just speculation, but he said that Sitchin provided references for everything that he found. Like, so every book that he wrote, he said Sitchin provided references except the Lost Book of Enki. And he speculates that he thinks that Sitchin got that information from the golden chest he found in Sapar, which is not many people know about that. Supposedly Sitchin found a golden chest in Sapar, and he thinks that's why he was able to write the Lost Book of Enki. But some people think the Lost Book of Enki is fictionalized, because there's no references for it. So it's hard to say, you know what I mean? But it's interesting nonetheless, But I think this is where, I got to be careful saying this, because I think this is where where it could be misinformation, right? You know what I mean? Because I can't verify it, So it's like, I don't know.
Well, the thing is that you're covered by saying you don't know. That's just information that you have. The fair use of knowledge and content is one of the things that's been weaponized by these people that are trying to control the narrative. Just because somebody says, well, you could get censored for that, doesn't mean that it's censorable. It just means in whoever's eyes they've determined that, for whatever reason, it meets these metrics and standards that they find offensive. And, the whole thing, it's just, if you're offended, that means, from my perspective, that you're really not sure about your opinion. If you have to resort to, a negative and emotionally negative energy and approach to take on something that you don't like that somebody else has said, then you probably need to take another look at it. You people are only offended because they allow themselves to be offended and they want to be offended. And they usually get there by you not saying what they want you to say. And that is when
you upset me.
Well, that's when the conversation and discourse takes a crap, because people can't have they don't have a sense of being able to freely share their ideas and express their experiences using the words and the language that they know. And that's one of the reasons that I think we iterate, is to gather as much of that on each iteration to add to the fullness of our frequency stamp.
And people have got to realize it's okay to disagree. And people have got to realize it's okay to disagree,
Well, they've been told that it's not okay. That's why they're disagreeable. Because they go, well, if you don't agree with me, then the problem is you, because you must agree with me. It's like, no, I have a different perspective, and I appreciate that you have yours, but I have mine. Can we share? Can we exchange and see if we can learn something from each other? But when it's dogmatic, it's, in your face, a lot of energy, emotionally charged, And especially when they do such a crappy job of defining what it is up front.
God, it sounds like politics, man.
Yeah, and you end up going, I don't even understand what you just said. That was confusing as hell. Please tell me like I'm a third grader. Help me understand what it is that I'm missing of your perspective. And if they can't do that, then everybody's going to waste their time.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Let me ask you guys this, because I'm ready we can call it, but this has been amazing. This is really great. Is there anything else you guys want to cover before we finish up for tonight, or?
Wow, I don't know. I think we laid a lot on the table there.
Actually, I missed out one little detail about that alien I actually encountered in my abduction, the Nautic. And you won't hear many people talk about this. When I described his blue eyes and blonde hair, I didn't describe his skin. If you look at a sun blister you get on your skin and it's slightly translucent, his skin was kind of tissue, was very similar, but it was a color of a mother of pearl. So for years, as I said, I felt like I had a near-death experience, and it sounds angelic to me. But if you can imagine seeing that skin, imagine the color of that skin with a very light tissue that looks like a blister coat over it, and it's just like a mother of pearl looking inside a shell. So that's described. I missed that in my at the beginning where, yeah, I thought that's a very important part to share. Anyway, and I've really enjoyed myself to see, well, this afternoon, my time. Well, no, it's still morning my time. God,
yeah,
you guys are outside the world. It drives me nuts.
Well, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you guys? And thank you so much for doing this. This was amazing. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. You can catch up with me on Mr. B's Truthseekers on YouTube and Mr. B's Truthseekers on Facebook. So, and I've also got a group called the Beehive. So anyone that wants to join the Beehive, more than welcome to join us. Thank you. Thank you for having me there, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
And you can find, the easiest way to find me is just robertbauer.com. All of my music, voiceover, podcasts, philosophies, links to all my social media. Everything is at robertbauer.com. And that makes it easy for anybody to find whatever they want. And thank you again for having us, Rob. It's always a pleasure to enjoy flapping some yap with people with open minds.
Yeah, this was awesome. I can't wait to put this out tomorrow. This is going to be a great one. So yeah, thank you guys, and I'd love to have you guys back on again. This was amazing.
Anytime.
Sounds great. Would really appreciate it. Thanks.
We'll see if we can bring Mr. Jim Goodall along with us next time.